Return of the Exiled, or Why Must I Be the Hero? By T.J. Stegaheis. Read by YOB. Dedicated to Kurt Reimert, whose stories inspired this work. Requiescat in pace. Chapter 7. Tennard. Tennard of Hostar College. My Lady Tannage was instructing the morning history class. In the year we now refer to as 32 before the war, King Roland of Nanlil joined forces with the beleaguered Menodoc people and turned the tide of battle, saving the human population and making Menodoc safe for the establishment of permanent nations. The creatures who had invaded and threatened the land were all driven north through the mountain passes and into the great northern swamps. Most of the class was not listening to the lecture, as the discussions being passed magically on magically created notes under the desk was so much more interesting. Not only were they discussing the constant secret meetings the masters held, there had also been several incidents that implied a dangerous level of distraction amongst both teaching staff and student body. Her ladyship continued. By lining up all the ships that they could be spared and pursuing the undead hordes across them, Benrick Island and the church finally gained control of the scourge. This was followed by burning the ships to ensure that no undead might escape back to the civilized lands. A small orb concealed under her desk was recording the entire lecture and would be copied onto similar devices for study prior to the coming tests. Not that it mattered. This was last month's lecture. Her ladyship was accidentally repeating due to her own distraction. Tennard sat and meditated on the situation here at the college. The normally stoic masters were openly agitated, arguing and discussing something heatedly just behind closed doors. Their privacy spells prevented the students from scrying into the conversations directly, but the sensitive feelings of those students could not be so easily deceived. Something was amiss, and the whole college was abuzz with it. Tennard's mother, a high-level adept of the Fire Order, was in seclusion, and he could not ask her for enlightenment. His father was on an exploratory mission and was not expected back for some weeks. Whatever the excitement was about, it had everyone on edge. Tennard's alchemical master nearly blew up the south wing of the school when he accidentally mismatched some chemicals at a critical point in a demonstration. Only the fast reaction of a mystic force master who was teaching across the hall saved the students and the building. While Tennard had not won any stars of excellence for specific skill or skill set, he was generally recognized as being exceptional for his overall balance of skills. While many students advanced well in a specific field or set of fields, most lacked such talent in other areas. Tennard was the proverbial jack of all trades, even to such odd areas as the whittling of magic wands and designing glyph patterns for magic cloaks. He had even made some silver, assisting other students in just those tasks. Fully a quarter of the students in his class wore cloaks and robes he had designed or helped design. Even his younger brother Fillard knew that something was up with the elders of their calling. Fillard was still in junior magician school and had to participate in the permanency ritual each morning after breakfast. Tennard, who was now 20 summers old and in magic college, no longer had to attend such tedious rituals. He was drawn out of his contemplation by a knock at the door. He was at first angry. He had placed a silence rune on the door so that he would not be disturbed. But quickly that turned to respectful attention when he saw Master Warrenshaw with 2 student aides at his side. "You are summoned to council," the master said, and turned to lead him there. No one refused a summons, especially to a council. Tennard softly closed the door and hurried to accompany the master. The council turned out to be in the high council hall on the very top floor of the building. Along with Master Warrenshaw, there was Master Varund, Master Torfel, and High Master Leary, smiling beatifically. Tennard saw several others in Master's robe that he did not recognize. Then his gaze reached the summoning circle. His father's image floated there, wavering slightly. Tennard wanted to run to his father and ask him 1,000 questions, but stayed with protocol and bowed to the High Master and then to the other masters in turn. Then he waited to be recognized and told why he was there. High Master Leary himself spoke to him. "Welcome, young Tennard. We have followed your educational progress with great joy and anticipation. We had hoped that upon your graduation you would become an invaluable member of our order and bring great honor to your family's calling." Here he paused, and his internal smile momentarily faltered. "But events have unfolded, and now require us to put you not only in harm's way, but to test your skills against a world that will not always appreciate the finer points of the path of wisdom. Your father, Master Jernert, has made some discoveries in the far north beyond Thanet that require a youthful but skilled mage to go quest after a book that we solemnly hope will answer some ancient mysteries." High Master Leary turned to the image of Tennard's father and said, "Master Jarek, would you please bring your honored son up to date?" Tennard looked at his father and saw a hint of worry in his eyes, but his father's voice was steady. "Salutations, my son. I bring tidings of a book both mysterious and profound. In short, son, we need to find this book, or news of its fate, and we need it quickly. I dare not enlarge upon it too far, lest I start tongues wagging in ignorance. We have been exploring an ancient temple ruin in the mountain bogs of the far north, and rumor and some of the wall carvings make reference to a forgotten book of Menodoc history known as the Green Book of Truth or the Green Book of Tarlurin. It was a record made by early Lusinians and concerns possible inaccuracies in the official history of these lands. If it still exists, and we think it does, it would be found in the South Thanet or maybe North Sersha. We have maps with all the known clues to help you cover both possibilities. You will be accompanied by 4 soldiers, and you will have additional men. You will be accompanied by 4 soldiers we have hired, and if you need additional men or funds, go to any of the colleges of our order and present yourself for assistance. But do not inform any, either the profane or those of our order, of what you seek, lest that start false knowledge or half-truths before we can ascertain the full facts. If the book be kept and you may not bring it away, draw a circle and call upon High Master Leary to project you here, that we may at least view the book and know the truth. If you can gain possession of the book, bring it speedily here by safest means, and know that you have helped the great work. We would send some of the school's masters, but all have such strong opinions concerning the book that we seriously doubt our own capacity to judge the book fairly. You know almost nothing about it, and may see it with honest, open eyes. I only wish that your mother were here to see you off. We are so proud of you, son." "Yes," added High Master Leary, "we are all proud of you as one of our best all-around students, and we wish you great speed and success. The soldiers are preparing as we speak, and Master Torian is seeing to your supplies that you will have a guide as far as the border, then our maps to guide you from there. I suggest that you prepare yourself and see to any personal business you may have, get a good night's sleep, and start out first thing in the morning. Do you have any questions before we close this council?" Tennard was overwhelmed, but calmed himself and asked what supplies he was to be given and what kind of country he would be passing through. Master Torfel gave him their best description of the book itself, along with additional clues that his father had found. Apparently, a group of explorers from Sersha had obtained the book some years ago and were taking it to Pan when they disappeared. Reports indicate that human bandits were responsible, and the book was likely sold locally. Tennard and the soldiers would take the King's Road from Riston City through the kingdom of Tudun and into northern Sersha. There the real search would begin. Booksellers and information dealers would be the principal persons to question. Unable to think of anything else to add, they all bowed to each other. The image of Tennard's father faded out, and the council was over. The first week of travel went by uneventfully, but just as they were approaching Riston City, a pack of town guards ambushed them, and after 3 of the soldiers were slain, the last one insisted that Tennard become invisible and get away. As the spell he had would not make his horse invisible too, he jumped off and climbed a tree to be unreachable. Tennard watched helplessly as the last soldier was killed. One of the guards pulled out a stone ring and looked through it at the surrounding terrain. Somehow he did not see Tennard, but called out, "You cannot hide from me, mage. Why not come out and be alive to be ransomed by your people, rather than killed by our arrows?" Tennard kept still, hearing a trace of doubt in the man's voice. After a while the guard said something under his breath, and the guardsmen pulled the bodies off into the bushes and disappeared. Not trusting them, Tennard stayed where he was, even after he became visible again. An hour later, the guide stood up from behind some tall grass, cussed a blue streak, and walked away into the direction that their attackers had taken. So that's how they came to be waiting for us, Tennard thought. He waited until the night was dark and still before he climbed down and checked on the soldiers. They were all dead and well stripped of anything useful. The horses were also gone with all of their supplies. Obviously, he could not risk the gates of Riston City and the town guards. He was very much on his own. That was when Tennard remembered that there was a temple of Hathor west of Riston, about a quarter of a mile outside the city wall. There he could get help, if anywhere. He was tired and hungry when he approached the Riston temple of the Hathor. Few farmers would settle near a temple of Hathor, and their wall stood quite alone on a treeless hill. It was the middle of the following afternoon. His mage senses tingled when he crossed the waters, and he was not surprised to see a young priestess and 2 guards waiting for him at the temple gate. She raised a hand to forbid him entry until she saw the badge of the Hostar College on his robe and led him into the compound. The priestess remained silent, but led Tennard to a house of rest and indicated that he should wait there. Inside, a girl wearing the robes of an initiate was setting food and drink on the table for him, then left quickly before he could ask any questions. Tennard set to eating. Simple vegetable porridge and bread with butter never tasted so good. He had finished his meal and was stretched out upon a comfortable bench when a tall, middle-aged woman in priestess's robes came in. After they bowed, she sat in the chair and asked him, "So, young mage, you are far from your school. What is your story?" Remembering what he had been told, he informed the priestess that he and 4 guards were traveling to Bokenshire in response to an inquiry, that they had been attacked by men wearing the uniform of Riston City guards, and that he and the guide had survived. He also stated that the guide had left with the attackers. She looked intently at him for a moment and said, "Well, I believe that there is more to your story, but you have told me the truth, and that is what I need to know. You may stay here tonight, and we will assist you in getting to the harbor town, Tai, safely. After that, I suggest you travel with the caravans for protection. The land is not as peaceful as it once was." "Why might I not travel by King's Road through Tudun?" inquired Tennard. "Because the border guards at the bridge over the river Oren are close associates of the city guards and are likely under the influence of their activities," said the priestess. "Even if they are honest, as I believe them to be, they will have been told tales that make it wise to avoid them." With that she rose and left him. The sun was still high, and being a curious fellow, Tennard went out into the compound to explore. The guest house was a quick study, 4 more quarters just like his, and one half again as large and more comfortable, a special guest room. Tennard found a robe much like that worn by the servant girl and put it on to be unobtrusive. He next found the stables and then the workrooms. He avoided the dormitory, as to be caught there would surely be more trouble than he wanted. Then Tennard spotted a small door leading under the main temple. Storage? He asked himself, and peered into the opening. The door was already open, so he wandered in and looked around. Simple shelves lined with containers and jars of supplies, a closet with spare robes, and a set of stairs going down. Then he heard voices from further down the stairs. Curious, he tiptoed a short distance down the stairs and eavesdropped. Eavesdropping was a popular activity back at college, and Tennant was good at it, just not good enough. Hearing a male voice, he went down a few steps further and felt the tingle at his calf that told him he had tripped a warder. The voices stopped instantly, and he began retracing his trail back to the guest house. A young priestess met him at the door to his room, wearing a frown and pointing a finger at him. He was sure that that finger was loaded and ready to wallop him if he spoke an untruth. "What did you hear?" she demanded. "Voices in the cellar," he replied. "How much did you understand?" she continued. "I heard a female voice and a male voice. I understood nothing," he returned, wanting to unload the issue and be done with it. She was not finished with him yet. The priestess grabbed his collar and asked him, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Tennant related that he was a mage student on his way to Bokenshire to do some research and had been set upon and robbed. He was here to recover and resupply that he might continue his journey. She looked at him for a long time. Tennant could almost hear the thoughts being turned over and explored in her mind. "Stay away from the cellar door," she said at last. "It's off limits to temporary guests." "I will," he said, "and thank you." "Rest well," she said, and disappeared into the gathering twilight. Tennant stuck to his room for the remainder of the night. A supper of some delicious stew was brought to him, and nothing indicated a waning of his welcome. After dinner, Tennant busied himself studying the story of how the Book of Truth was lost. It had been kept in a secret temple up in the mountains beyond Thanet, past even the dwarven lands. But a shift in the bedrock had caused the bogs surrounding the temple to rise, and the priest had been forced to abandon the temple. Later, a group of Circean explorers had retrieved the book. At some point near the Thanet-Circean border, the explorers were attacked, and the entire company was killed. The belief that the book was sold seemed sound. Rumors of the sightings of the book suggested that someone still possessed it, therefore it might be found. This ruled out goblins, grolls, trolls, and ogres, as these races had little cause to value books, and certainly few would sell it to them. Elves seemed unlikely, as they would have not allowed such sightings, if the sightings were true. It would have to be men, dwarves, gnomes, or giants. Giants and gnomes seemed least likely of these, but could not be ruled out. If the dwarves had it, a bargain could be made. If men had it, they should still be open to bargaining, at least to make a copy. After reaching this point in his reasoning, Tennant was sleepy and went to bed. In the morning, after he had been given food and clothing, some money, and other necessities, he was summoned to speak with the Reverend Mother, an elderly woman, very stately looking. She asked him his name and family, and to repeat how he had been attacked, so that she also asked the names of the soldiers who had died, so that they might pray for the men. No mention was made of last night's encounter, so he said nothing either. The Reverend Mother explained that Captain Tambard had left for Ty some days before, otherwise Tennant could have traveled with him. As it was, the temple was short on men, and she would have to suggest someone she trusted to accompany him. So the Reverend Mother advised him to go to a certain house nearby and talk to the head of the family about joining a merchant caravan, at least to Ty, so that he might avoid another robbery or attack. Tennant thanked her and blessed her as he had been taught, and was excused. When he returned to his room, the priestess from last night was waiting for him. "Is she sending soldiers with you?" she asked. "No," he replied. "I'm to go to a house nearby and join a caravan to Ty. I plan to catch a ship for Circe and find a caravan heading my way." "If you will use your magic to assist us, I can get you an escort to Ty," she offered. "Maybe beyond." "Assist you how?" asked Tennant, now suspicious. "A small group is starting out for Ty tomorrow," she said. "They have soldiers and a priestess, but could use a mage to appraise dangers of a magical or intricate nature. You could go along as an advisor and benefit from their numbers." "How many are they?" he asked. 15 fit fighters and a priestess. You would make 17, she replied. Tennard was still suspicious. The deal sounded too good. Still, if the soldiers and the priestess were there, they must be honorable and trustworthy. Although he needed to reach North Brokenshire, he could get passage on a ship to Greatport and would find his own way from there. I agree, he said. Good, she replied. Gather your things and follow me. Tennard wrote a brief letter of thanks and farewell to the Reverend Mother of the temple and stopped a young acolyte, asking her to deliver it for him. The men she introduced him to looked rough, but he had already agreed, so he said nothing. The group that she formed had passed through the crypts and were traveling south to Ty and the port. Then there seemed to be some disagreement as to who was in charge. Tennard had taken it for granted that the priestess Dobrina was in charge. The man Sard seemed to think that he was the leader. Tennard stood with Dobrina as the only other person at a station equal to his. The other men stood with Sard as one of their own. The gnome and the young girl seemed to just follow whoever shouted the loudest, and otherwise kept low. He hoped that this would be worked out, as the bickering was unseemly and might attract unwanted attention. Their first night on the road, he drew a circle and contacted Master Warrenshall. He told the master that he had lost his first soldiers, but now had more soldiers and a priestess to accompany him to Ty. Master Warrenshall acknowledged his report and told Tennard to keep them informed. The second day it rained, and what cheer they had fell away. It rained for 6 days straight, and travel was slow and uncomfortable. On the 9th day, they found marks on the road where a party of horsemen had crossed and then doubled back over the road. Sard said that it was an army patrol. Dobrina said that it was bandits, as they were far too organized to be army men. Tennard did a psychometric reading, and the tracks came back as City Guard Patrol. They both shouted, "See!" and Tennard decided to keep silent as much as possible. Several times they hid in farmers' hay barns when there was traffic on the road. Finally, after 6 weeks of bicker, trudge, as the gnome put it, they reached the outskirts of Ty. Dobrina set the girl in to buy overcloaks for her and Tennard, as their customary garb would attract too much attention. She suggested that Sard and the men split up to go through Ty separately or in pairs, and amazingly he agreed. It seemed that Sard and the men already planned to go on to Brokenshire. Maybe Tennard could continue on with them. Once down-dressed, Dobrina and Tennard traveled together to gather information and buy supplies to replace those used on the way here. Once Dobrina saw 2 men dressed as temple guards and quickly ducked down a different street. He saw some of their men doing small labors for coin and equipment. Tennard let Dobrina go ahead of him to the dock so he could check at the local mage college. He contacted Master Torfell and informed him of the group's progress. Eventually they all met up down on the wharf as Dobrina was discussing travel arrangements with a local fisherman. Sard was in a surprisingly good humor, and although he frowned when Dobrina told him that she and Tennard would be going on with him, probably going all the way to Luffa, Tennard decided to keep his real destination to himself. Anything might happen on the way to Luffa, and he might get other options. The book was out there. He just had to take his opportunities available and bide his time.